Let's build the 5th member of our themed squad of artificers. Now, the inspiration for this comes from, well, a couple different things, right? You have a concept kind of like a Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, right? Where you have soldiers who can build artifice and use alchemy and are magical, but they're also fighters in a sense. And I figured, well, it would be a good way to conceptually test what an artificer can do by having 5 different artificers of random backgrounds and races and all this other stuff. And I thought, okay, so if we want to make sort of an elite squad of soldiers that are artificers, a good way to do that was to look at, let me find it here, of ships in the sea, because in particular here on page 5 and 6, it talks about 6 officers aboard a ship. Now, we're going to go with a land-based, like an army. And I'm going to keep the captain as an NPC, similar to what we did when we were making a crew and testing out this Unearthed Arcana. So what we're going to be doing tonight, though, is making our final player character of the first mate. And we're going to take the concept of the first mate, and we don't need this anymore. We're going to drop it over here onto this character and use this as an inspirational guideline for making a character that is similar. All right? So this specialist keeps the crew's morale up by providing close supervision, encouragement, and discipline. A first mate benefits from a high charisma score as well as proficiency with the intimidation and persuasion skills. Now, this is an extra sidestep from vanilla character making, because we're talking about a more elite squad. I am going to be giving this the characters these skills or tool proficiencies that each of them get. For example, Bosun gets the athletics skill and proficiency with carpenter's tools. Cook received brewer supplies and cook's utensils, that kind of a thing. So if we come over here, intimidation and persuasion are going to be granted to this elite soldier artificer. And if we have redundancies or repetitiveness, we'll take care of it. In a way also, because artificers are skilled with tinker tools, thieves tools, and one other, for the roles that automatically assign something like carpenter's tools or herbalism kits or something, right? Well, the herbalism kit's not necessarily an artisan tool, but if you get what I'm saying, this is us assigning that tool set without just randomly rolling it. We can, and we can still make it work. In fact, the first 2 artisans we made at the end of last week, we did just that, and it worked out very, very well. But this is it's a thematic choice. As the DM of this group, I'm allowing for this. And so we're going to have a high charisma. Well, are we going to have a high charisma? We'll see, maybe. As well as proficiency with the intimidation persuasion. So we have that in store. Now what I'd like to do is roll percentile to find out if we have a male character, a female character, or a multi-classed character. With a 66, that is going to be a male character. And now, because I'm also entertaining using Volo's Guide to Monsters races, I'm going to roll a d20. 1 through 10, we're going to use a player handbook race. On 11 through 20, we're going to use a Volo's race. And I do this because I wanted to add an extra stress test element to Artificer, but I also wanted this to be thematic of, armies take in all kinds of people. A lot of different makes and models, people of different backgrounds, and so forth. And so if we have a full-blooded orc, like our first character this week we generated is, then they're bringing something new and interesting to the table as an elite special forces unit, but also as a way to test, can an orc interface with Artificer, decently enough? Funny Dill, army takes anyone willing to fight. Orcs, howdy again, orcs. You should make a gnome bard named Selena Nomez. Hey, Alzy, it's good to see you. What's going on, Twitch Tube? It's your boy, Matty Plyer, back at it with some fresh D&D tips for you all mad lads out there. Don't forget to smash that like button. It's good to see you, Alzy. And Roger Twy, howdy to you as well. Thank you for the El Capitan. Cheers to you all. You have a new orc word for the day. What is it, orcs make beautiful lovers? Let's roll that d20 to figure out which race we're going to be, well, the first step in that. A 9. All right, so we're going to be using a player's handbook race, so I can get rid of Volo's guide, and to close out more tabs, I will not need ships in the sea anymore. Let's go to the player's handbook and roll a d10 to figure out our race. 1. A hill dwarf. No, I'm sorry, hang on. That's it is dwarf. Dwarf is 1, but I'm gonna roll odds or evens on another d10 and we'll figure it out. So it is gonna be a mountain dwarf. Male mountain dwarf, who are medium-sized. Let's figure out his alignment with 2 percentile sets. 79 and 58, almost in the evil territory there. It looks like we're true neutral. So, TN, or you can just put N if you wish. Well then, that is, well, if you want to have people come to you and you could measure all sides of an argument, that could be an indication of his personality. All right, now we've been making all of our characters at level 14, so we already know the level. I don't need to roll for that. And for the possible replacement of the possible replacement of ASI's, ability score improvements, with feats, let's roll for it. I'm going to go with at least 1 because all of the artificers we've made so far have not had any feats to interact with them. And so I'm going to force at least 1 unless we roll higher with this percentile roll. That way we can have a conversation about it too. 98, which means all 3. Oh my gosh. Well, this works out, I guess, then. I wanted feats, and there you go. The dice have spoken that we have a specialized first mate, or the equivalent in a land-based army. So Orcs Make Beautiful Lovers is giving us some words in Orcish. A coim is the stack of coins stuck together. Happens a lot with pennies, because copper oxidizes. So old pennies turn green and stick to each other. All right, I hope you all wrote this down. We have our 3rd Orcish word from Orcs Make Beautiful Lovers, and apparently orcs encounter this often enough that this is its own special word. Alzy says, by Tolkien mythos, orcs should be good artificers. You know my favorite work in monster language? It's Griark, says Funny Dill. Remind me not to touch American coins. That's nasty, says Elsie. They are tough cookies. I chose 14 because I wanted to work with some of their abilities and to be able to conceptualize it, but I didn't want to cap them out, as I still wanted us to consider what could they go on to do and learn, and how could they grow, because they still have 2 ASIs or feats ahead of them at this level, and we can still have some wiggle room, even if it's only a psychological trick. We still have some wiggle room for them to grow as they finish out the remaining 6 levels. Azriel, welcome. Orc, a friend of yours, sent a New Zealand penny. Funny says, one of the most underappreciated, I believe, in feats is defense, which grants +1 ACC. I don't know if I'm following that, Funny Dill. It is damp where orcs live, that's true, so naturally they're going to get sticky. Maybe orc sweat oxidizes coins faster than normal? I think orcish probably sounds like Scots Gaelic. Man, that's a harsh sound, says Alzi. Well, I guess this is where I can say, in my D&D campaign world, that's almost akin, depending on the person delivering that, to, actually, in my world, the orcs and goblins were one of the first humanoid races, and as such, their biology is close, which is why you can have half orcs, right? But one of the big differences is, instead of iron, which rusts and turns reddish brown, and that's what gives us our red blood, because iron does oxidize, it carries oxygen, the orcs and goblins in my campaign world have used copper in their blood. And as the copper oxidizes to bring oxygen to their systems, that's what turns them green. Just like we're shades of, reddish, pinkish, brownish because of our blood, orcs get, greenish, tealish colors because of the copper. I don't see why you couldn't, Funny Dill. Now we haven't run that. I can't say that I have stats for it in my campaign world. It hasn't come up. But, I mean, for orcs, for sure. Goblins, we've interacted with them. It might have been something where, because they were more a specialization off of the main, the general humanoid shape and size of an orc, that maybe that's why we didn't have it, because it just wasn't compatible in this theater. Could you? I don't see why you couldn't. Orc blood must be highly conductive in this game. We never really statted it to be more conductive or have a susceptibility to electricity than humans with iron. My favorite thinking of goblins in my world would have the magic of the puny, which keeps them going until their final breath. Not according to Goblin Slayer. You can only have problems when goblins breed, and he exterminates goblin problems, says Black Wolf. I like wood orcs like that, but I also enjoy a good desert orc. You get plus in diplomacy instead of intimidate. And they are tan. And yes, orcs, that's the list so far. A Benump, an Omble, and a Coim. All right, so we're making level 14 characters, and we're taking all 3 feats. I was looking for at least one, but the dice said all of them. Now let's generate a 13-sided die, and use that to determine our character's background. We rolled a 9. That is an Outlander. Outlanders have 10 different origins or things they did while they were an Outlander. As suggested in the player's handbook, I'm going to roll a d10, and we have Outlander number 4. What does that mean? I don't know, and it doesn't matter right now, because all we need are placeholders. We'll explore the minutia here in a little bit. While we're thinking of that, let's roll 2d8 for our personality traits. So we have a 6 and a 7, and then an ideal, bond, and flaw on 3d6, 4, 5, 6. There we go. We already know our class. We don't know our subclass just yet, but let's look at his personality some, and we'll figure that out. So really all that's left is to give him some physical stature, right? Oh, funny. Well, I hope you recover quickly. Mountain dwarves start at 4 feet tall. We're going to add 2d4 inches to that height. We're adding 2 inches. So he is 4 feet, 2 inches high. We're going to take that same 2 and multiply it by 2d6 by 4. We're adding 8 pounds to 130 base weight. So he is 138 pounds. More of a fit build, perhaps, for a dwarf. Now let's roll a percentile and figure out where in his life he is. We rolled a 69. That is going to put us in the middle-aged range. So that's going to be column 4. And for a dwarf, middle age is between 151 and 225 years old. So let's make a 75-sided die and roll it. 4. All right, so 51, 52, 53, 54. Middle-aged at 154. He just went over the hill. Okay, we now no longer need our random number generator, so we can tuck this away. And now let's... I enjoy starting with the character's background. It tells us so much about the character we're generating. And it gives your character. So open up your player's handbooks if you have them to Chapter 4, everyone. We're going to scroll alphabetically. Hermit, Outlander, here we are. On page 136. Gidlock, hello, it's good to see you again. Hey, One Crit. What's all this then, mate? Welcome, we are building an Artificer, One Crit. Happy Friday to you as well. Funny Dill, may I ask your opinion on the Xanathar's extra spells? Like, one of the most ridiculous of them being Thunderstep. I don't really have an opinion on that. I'm not too familiar, as I've never really played with anything... well, I don't get the chance to play often, and so if I do, I keep it simple and just stick to the player's handbook, because everything you need is in there. I'm not saying that Xanathar's isn't a bad book. In fact, that would be... That's a book I highly recommend you pick up after the core books. But I can't really say that I have an opinion on that spell because I'm not familiar with it. Funny Dill. Yeah, no problem, One Crit. This is excellent background. Easy listening. Alright, male mountain dwarf. An Outlander. Outlander number 4. What does that mean? He is or was a guide. Oh, and this works out so well with 2 of the other characters. Well, really, I guess 3? Maybe all 4 of them. Well, anyway, through happenstance, or again, the dice gods demand it, this this leader is in a very good position to lead because you have this exploratory special forces unit. And so here we have someone who is the squad leader, who has this background as a guide. Being an Outlander, we gain proficiency in athletics and survival. So let's do that. Survival, athletics. We'll get a tool proficiency in some kind of musical instrument, and then a language, one of our choice. As a dwarf, we get common, dwarven, and then one other. And for tools... Oh, pardon me. Musical instrument. Equipment. A staff. So I guess we could call that like a quarterstaff. Hunting trap. A trophy from an animal you killed. What we can do is perhaps roll this as a trinket that we got off of an animal, or maybe we found on an animal, or even inside of an animal that we hunted and killed. Traveler's clothes. And a belt pouch containing 10 gold pieces. There we go. Our feature is Wanderer. You have an excellent memory for maps and geography, and you can always recall the general layout of terrain, settlements, and other features around you. In addition, you can find food and fresh water for yourself and up to 5 other people each day, provided that the land offers berries, small game, water, and so forth. Excellent. Our little squad is self-sufficient now. Thunderstep is ridiculous. It's a level 3 spell that teleports a target and does a thunderclap as you bamf to another area. What's making it ridiculous? Okay. Let's take a look at his personality now. This is where the meat and potatoes meet. And potatoes. And meat and potatoes. Probably so, Azrael. I guess we'll find out a little bit more with the personality traits, ideal, bond, and flaw. Level 5, you can teleport as a character. That is a privilege that not many have. Well, what about Misty Step? Let's see what else. 6 and 7 for the personality traits. I'm always picking things up, absently fiddling with them, and sometimes accidentally breaking them. Well, if you're trained as a soldier, you're trained to break things and kill people. I guess that works. And personality trait number 7, I feel far more comfortable around animals than people. Ooh. So he might stick to himself a lot more. Or, if we want to replace animals, we can keep animals, nothing wrong with that. He might feel an extra bond with his either alchemical homunculus or the turrets that he can summon. Right? So we might be able to replace, I feel more comfortable around magical items or artifice or something along those lines than other people. So he can, in fact, he might be very charismatic and people look up to him, they respect him. But maybe it makes him nervous to be around others. And the turrets always follow his orders. He doesn't have to worry about them. He doesn't have to worry about them, you know, not coming home one day kind of a thing. You know, animals will follow, you know, at least the ones that he trains, maybe they follow his orders. So he's comfortable with that. Of doing damage as well and with a range of 90 feet. No, it's fine. And don't forget, though, too, Funny Dill, it may do that, but because of the sound it makes, it's also not very stealthy. And so you could be giving away your position. You could be attracting a lot of attention. There's a lot of other drawbacks as well that can come along with that. All right, what is his ideal? Number 4. Might. The strongest are meant to rule. Now we did roll true neutral, and you say, well, look, this is evil. It even says so in the book in parentheses. That's fine. His ideal could be that he wants people to be stronger. As this, you know, as this master sergeant or whatever, this drill sergeant or something over this squad, he wants them to be stronger. He's not afraid to push them, you know, to have them push through the pain in order, you know, to train them through extreme circumstances, that kind of a thing. You know, it's still presenting might, but he's not showing malice along with it. His bond is number 5. I suffer awful visions of a coming disaster and will do anything to prevent it. Oh, no wonder he took in the orc and even the Yuan-Ti pureblood. So it seems like he's been receiving these visions, and here we even get these other beastmen saying there are things happening in our territories. Can we work together and go and solve them? And the leader of this squad, well, not the captain necessarily, but the leader of the squad that's out with them in the field, it can take them then on this adventure because it's something that he's been drawn into as well. By the way, this is why backgrounds are so awesome. Not just as a PC, but as a DM. Look at all of the story content you can pull from the characters we've made so far. It is baffling. It's amazing. And it's all organic. Does silence muffle a thunderclap? It could. Depending on the components for the spell, though, you might not be able to cast it inside silence. And lastly, our flaw, because we are all flawed creatures, is number 6. Don't expect me to save those who can't save themselves. It is nature's way that the strong thrive and the weak perish. Well, commander of a special forces unit, not everyone gets the privilege of being in this squad of 5, or I guess 6 technically, with the captain as the NPC. And so he's stern but fair. And these others, while they do share his dream of this, this incoming disaster, they had to prove themselves to him. And so here we have this very strong matronly orc. And then we have this very capable Yuan-Ti medic. Someone pronounced Fatagan correctly, and now we have problems, says Azrael. So this is going to be based off of, if we look at Soldier, This is going to be Officer. Now let's see what we get for being a dwarf. Your Constitution increases by 2. Excellent, because Constitution should be a good score for us. And our speed is 25 feet. 12 climb, 12 swim, 0 fly. We do get 60 feet of dark vision. We have resistance against poison. And or we have advantage on saving throws against poison, and you have resistance against poison damage. So we're going to fill in the R bubble of IRV for immunities, resistances, and vulnerabilities. And advantages versus poison. Dwarven combat training, you have proficiency with the battle axe and the hand axe, throwing hammer, and war hammer. Or I guess that's light hammer. As an artificer, we're going to get the hand axe and the light hammer. So really what we can put down here is battle axe and warhammer. Simple hand crossbow, hand/heavy crossbows. I was peeking a little bit ahead at Artificer. That's what you're going to get for your weapons. Tool proficiency. Oh my. Well, building a Dwarven Artificer with certain backgrounds, you just get tons of tools. And what's nice about Artificers, as you'll see, is we're going to get expertise in all of our artisan tools. So you gain proficiency with the artisan's tools of your choice: smiths, brewers, or mason's tools. Picking up, fiddling with them. I feel the strongest are meant to rule. Awful vision of a coming disaster. The other things have been about kind of like a city being taken over. The strong thrive and the weak perish. All right, I'm thinking mason's tools, right? The strength of stone. You build something strong and it'll stay strong. And maybe he's comfortable around rocks. They don't really talk back. He can command people, but you know what? Rocks are consistent. He's always there. He can always work with them, and there we go. So instrument and mason's tools. I'm just going to put masons because we're going to have a lot of other proficiencies. We are going to get stone cunning, which we're an int character. That'll be extra nice. Whenever you make an int history check related to the origin of stonework, you are considered proficient and add double your proficiency bonus. We already have our languages and our sub-race. As a mountain dwarf, we're going to increase our strength score by 2. And we have proficiency with light and medium armor. We are already going to get that as an artificer. Now, in a situation like this, could you go to your your DM, bat your eyelashes, and say, because I have a redundancy, could I take another artisan tool or 2 instead? And maybe your DM will say, yeah, it's really repetitive. And so, instead of giving you like a floating non-magical +1 because you're like super trained in light and medium armor, maybe I'll just let you defray that into another skill or a tool, one of each, 2 of one, none of the other. Hash it out. Never expect it or demand it, but if you can provide a reason that makes sense in the context of the character, then why not give it a try? Funny Dill asks, what is the worst tool in your belief? I don't know if one of that could really exist, simply because, you know, you have the right tool for the job. If I need a calligraphy set and to be proficient with it, that's, yeah, calligraphy might not be as seemingly obvious as carpentry or masonry, but when you need calligraphy, you super need it, and it's a very good skill to have. You can also do a lot of storytelling with proficiency in calligraphy. It's a very neat skill. Oh, so anyway, yeah, you have the armor training. In our case, it's redundant, but whatever, it happens. We did get that nice +2 to our strength score. Armor is going to be simple, or I'm sorry, light, medium, and shields. Oh, good answer, one crit. You say this guy has to have a stone golem? He could with if he goes alchemist and takes the homunculus. Or maybe his turrets, if he's an artillerist, could look like stone statues of some kind. I read your I read your flying comment there, Azrael. Yeah, no problem, one crit. All right, so we have an Outlander. We have a Dwarf. Now, let's make an Artificer out of him. Taking a look at Artificer, we are level 14. So we have 14 D8 hit die. So they have kind of the standard, the medium amount of hit points. They do have proficiencies in light armor, medium armor, and shields. Weapons, simple hand crossbows and heavy crossbows. Tools. We get thieves' tools, tinker's tools, and another artisan's tools of our choice. And that would be on top of even the dwarven ones. Now, it does say that we do get to learn an instrument from being an Outlander. That isn't necessarily the same. So talk to your DM and see if that could be replaced or how that would work. We have Mason's tools, Tinker's tools, Thieves' tools, and one other. In this case, because our Sailor parallel didn't give a tool choice, which is kind of why I was using those, and also to help reflect that they're elite characters, like elite soldiers in this squad. I guess we're going to go to Chapter 5 and roll it randomly. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 different artisan's tools. Let's roll a 17-sided die. Whoops, I hit it twice. All right, so the first result is 13. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Potter's tools. So he's a mason and a potter. The Potterverse is full of magical alcohol. Well, we rolled a Potter. Our saving throws are Constitution and Intelligence. And then we get to choose 2 skills from Arcana, History, Investigation, Medicine, Nature, Perception, and Sleight of Hand. Picking things up, fiddling with them, breaking them, suffer awful visions. I'm expecting to say those who can't save themselves. I'm kind of getting Sleight of Hand. Hey, the Face of Jericho, welcome. There's nothing really social. Feel more comfortable around animals than people. So we can make that nature, right? So he has the knowledge of that. Or if we think that his artifice is what distracts him from people, maybe we can give him Arcana. I think sleight of hand definitely is one way to go with this. It is very nice, Lith. Equipment, any two simple weapons. Now, look, are we still going to have our starting equipment by level 14? Probably not, but it could be thematic if we considered what he'd use, right? So he gets a quarterstaff from his background. Being an Outlander, he hunts, probably a dagger, and... Oh, you know... This could be another interaction with your DM if you're running a character like this. Say, look, I can get two simple weapons, but I am trained with the Warhammer and the Battle Axe. Could I trade one of my choices, or both of them, if you're willing, for one of these martial weapons to wield instead? Your DM might say yes, or no, comma, but. Have that conversation. Oh, that's excellent, Jericho, and thank you for sharing that. Yeah, like if you remain composed, calm, maybe there's a reason, keep communication open until somehow it's not. For whatever reason, you know, they prove themselves to be a very bad person or whatever. But in this case, it looks like, you know, patience and justice prevailed. And you're getting this nice follow-up. A dwarven quarterstaff, so a baton, says Azrael. Oh, pardon me. So let's say that the DM says, yeah, you could take a warhammer. Have some fun with it. Then we'll go dagger and light crossbow. Studded leather or scale mail. I think we're making a strong boy here. So we can go with the heavier armor. Remember, scale mail is 14 plus dex, max 2. What am I missing here? Save for skills, Arcana could make sense for the artifice distracting him. Yeah, we went with Arcana and sleight of hand. Okay, gotcha, Face. All right, next up, per our class, we get some magical tinkering, which allows us to create aspects of thaumaturgy, aspects of prestidigitation that have a permanent effect on mundane objects. And we can have a number of those equal to our int modifier. We don't know what that is yet, but there's the note for it. As well, we are spellcasters. We're half spellcasters with the ability to cast rituals, which is nice. While we're here, let's see, at 14th level, I have a +5 for our proficiency. We know 6 infusions, and so we're gonna come back here. We're not going to put the infusions on this character just yet, because that's something I want to do here, maybe in this next section. But just know that we're going to get 6. These are like Warlock invocations. You can change them as you level up, but they're very useful, and they'll provide various benefits. Arcane Armament allows us to get a second attack as long as that is made with a magical weapon. And the right cantrip for the job is the ability to, after a long rest, swap out one of our cantrips for another. So we could cycle through our cantrips very easily. Your spells are prepared in a similar fashion to Paladin, where you're a half caster, and you're a half caster, and you can change your spells every day. Let's see. We also gain tool expertise, which will make us experts in all of our any of our ability checks that makes proficiency with a tool. Now, I wonder in this case, you have specifically artisan's tools, but this just says tools. So the expertise could spill over into things like vehicles, land, or water. Well, no, it would have to, right? Thieves' tools is separate from an artisan's tools. So we would have proficiency in our instrument as well. Not just our... not just in our artisan's tools. We're not high enough level... Oh, pardon my yawn. We're not high enough level for the spell storing item. I got it from there. I don't know if you might still be able to find this version of the sheet, Lith, but that is the site that you can find some really good alternative character sheets. You're very welcome. Let's see. He's a commander, picking things up, fiddling with them. I think everything here is leaning that he is going to be an Artificer Artillerist. And in fact, let's make this the second person in the squad who has gun proficiency. So battle axe, warhammer, simple, hand and heavy crossbows, and in this case, firearms. Our first one was our rock gnome that we made last night. Though with her, we made her more of a grenadier, where she was familiar with black powder. Pardon, she could use it, but it was something more like she threw, or that she's the person who could haul these heavy kegs of black powder around, that kind of a thing. For him, I think we can give him a gun, which, by the way, firearms and bombs and all that, even alien technology, page 268 of the Dungeon Master Guide. And so we could even replace something here with a firearm of some kind that we feel is appropriate. You know, a hunting rifle, a revolver, something. My headphones are beeping at me here. So he'll be a gunner. And let's go from Alchemist to Artillerist. You gain proficiency with Smith's tools and Woodcarver's tools. So now we are up to an Instrument, Mason, Tinker, Thief, Potter, Smiths, and Woodcarvers. Whew. You gain the ability to use rods, staves, and wands as spellcasting foci for your Artificer spells. You also gain a non-magical wooden wand for free, which you've carved in your spare time. And if you craft a magic item in the wand category, it takes you a quarter of the normal time, and it costs you half as much of the usual gold. Remember, the usual gold to craft is half of market value. Therefore, half of half is a quarter. If you want to make wands, it will take you 1/4 the time and 1/4 the cost that you see in the books. Tools of the trade wands. We are going to get some... they're like domain spells, oath spells, or your Circle of the Land Druid circle spells. So if we come down here... let's see, we're going to get 4 cantrips. 1, 2, 3, 4. At this level, we have 4, 3, 3, and 1. Artillerist. Hey, Delcorn, thank you very much for that host. Tinker, Tailor, Soldier, Spy. Oh, I love it, Azrael. That might be a good... a good name for the adventure that we're going to craft about these adventures. The inky version of the sheets looks... yeah, it does look super nice, Lith. I'm going to scoot this over to make typing a little bit easier here. So we're going to get Shield and Thunderwave. Scorching Ray and Shatter. Fireball and Wind Wall. Ice Storm and Wall of Fire. And the spells we can prepare on top of that is going to equal our intelligence modifier plus half of the levels we have in Artificer. In fact, we can even put this Artificer spells prepared equal int. And in this case, because it's we're making a level 14 characters, it'll be int plus 7. We cast off of int. Let's see what else. Oh, we know the number of infusions. However, we can only infuse a number of items. In this case, 4. Infused items. We can have 4, and I don't know. I guess we're presuming that we've used none so far. And our cantrips known was 4. 1, 2, a 3, a 4. There we go. Scroll back down. At 3rd level, we're going to get Arcane Turret. You learn how to create a magical turret with your smith's tools in hand. You can take an action to magically summon a medium turret in an unoccupied space on a horizontal surface within 5 feet of you. Now, as we randomly rolled a wagon right? A wagon right, WRIGHT, a wagon builder. we were having fun considering, right? She tinkers already being a rock gnome, but the wagon that she designed could possibly be used as a tank in some way, because our artillerists can summon their turrets because it is a horizontal surface, right? It doesn't have to be on the ground. And so it might have an area where the turrets can be summoned to make like a defensible position with this wagon, to make a tank or some sort of like a battle wagon. On my way home with boneless spicy barbecue chicken, so I'm on mobile. Delcorin, that sounds really good. I might end up making some of that for the snack on break. My way of protesting that nasty stuff called guacamole. Yes, well, your protest has been noted. Azra says guacamole is of the devil. Well, as Delcorin states, guacamole is the salsa of Barovia, and who is the master of Barovia but the devil Strahd, Patui. Now, this is kind of lengthy, right? Summoning these turrets, it's not complex. You just have many options. And I do want to stress this with the Artificer. In my opinion, as of right now, having worked with them as much as I have, Artificers aren't broken. They are more complex. You should never not be doing something as an Artificer. You have downtime activity things you can do. You have combat things you can do. You have roleplay things you can do. If you're going to play an Artificer, you have abundant options. Please be familiar with them, because otherwise you will be the bottleneck of time and choice in a situation, in a combat situation, in a social situation, something along those lines. Artificers always have something they can do. They can never not do something, okay? This is an advanced class, so be sure you're familiar with it before you choose to run it. Otherwise, you are going to be the bottleneck. And also, that said, people are going to look at you and say, well, you can cast the Cure spell, you're our healer. But I can do so much more. Doesn't matter, you're the healer. Now just spend all your spell slots on keeping the Barbarian up. That is possible as well. Even if you're on top of your game and you're making efficient choices, because of your versatility, you could be pigeonholed into a particular support role for the party. Liarza Lyric and Gaffer Ropehand in The War Wagon. Remake 2019. So please make sure with something like this, especially because turrets, you get this at level 3. This is key to you being an artillerist. Please read it and understand it so you can employ it and you can juggle your turrets as necessary, and you are making efficient commands at the tabletop with it. At level 6, we get Wand Prototype. Whenever you finish a long rest and your woodcarver's tools are with you, you can touch a non-magical wooden wand and turn it into a magic item. When you do so, you invest it with one artificer cantrip of your choice, even one you don't know, that has a casting time of 1 action. As an action, you can cause the magic wand to produce the cantrip using your spellcasting ability modifier. It is giving us extra cantrips, right? You're kind of like the merchant from Resident Evil. You just come up and you're like, what are you buying? What are you selling? Stranger, stranger. I'll buy it at a high price. And when we reach 14th level, we can invest the wand with 2 cantrips. Suddenly, we have suddenly we have you know, light and dancing lights on one. We're being super efficient. Like, well, I don't know if those are on the artificer what's-a-bobber, but still, we have all the cantrips. Whatever you want, we can do it because we make a wand for it. And at level 14, we get something called Fortified Position. And now we can have 2 arcane turrets out, and we can sort of juggle them around. We can move them around the battlefield by summoning and desummoning them. One bonus action will activate both turrets at the same time. It's really good. All right, Artificer Infusions, we're not going to talk about that just yet. We know that we can have 6, and we'll choose the ones that this character will end up having. Delcorn's asking one-time use. When you do so, you invest it with an Artificer cantrip. As an action, you can use the magic wand to produce the cantrip. The wand loses this magic when you finish your next long rest. So it's not one-time use, but you can always be juggling cantrips and use those throughout the day. And remember, because of what we get from an artificer, not specifically the subclass of Artillerist, we get the right cantrip for the job. So when we wake up after a long rest, not only can we swap out one of our own cantrips for something else on the list, we can then recharge a wand. And by level 14, that wand can do 2 different things. All right. Really, the next thing that we have to look at are going to be the feats that we're going to give this character. And perhaps to help guide us, we can always we can drop in our standard array of scores. You know, we'll go 15, probably 14, 13, 12, 10, and 8. That is going to give us a constitution of 14 after racial and a strength of 10. There we go. And now, instead of taking the ASIs, we're going to take 3 different feats. Now, some of the feats might give us a partial stat bump, and we can be open-minded to that. But let's open our PHBs to Chapter 6 and discover which feats are available to us. What would work for a person like him? We have someone who builds. We have this artificer. We have this artillerist. Is a good sharpshooter. So we might take a look at something, and we could probably replace something like crossbow expert with like a marksman or the like. You know, something that's thematic. Because we will need to take a look at the guns also and see what they do. I don't know. What would work for a character like him? He is wearing medium armor. He does use a shield. Well, unless he's wielding a... I don't know. That'd be interesting. Can you imagine someone coming up to you? You know, you got some nice, like, half-plate medium armor, a shield, and a pistol. Pew! Tink. Pew! Tink. Hey, Spirit Channels, welcome. Let's see. I read this UA yesterday. It's really interesting. WA making magical items easier to create and more abundant. Still, there's nothing like 2nd edition's 9th level permanency. Per what you're saying, Delcorn, it'll be interesting to see who can tell what a wand is going to that a wand is going to expire. And yes, howdy to you, Spirit. Welcome. Something about making the wand to pass to another party member or as a source of income. Nice to know it'll last all day. I mean, yeah, if you want to be a flim-flam man, you make a magic item, it will glow magical. And so if you really wanted to, you could dupe people and say, oh yeah, here's a wand of dancing lights. Enjoy. And they buy a wand of dancing lights from you, except it just expires the next day. And by the next day, you could be in another town if you really wanted to do that. Like selling a gun to someone and not telling them it only has 30 rounds. I kind of like crossbow expert if we make him a pistol shield character. Right? Ignore the loading quality. Being within 5 feet of a hostile creature doesn't impose disadvantage on your attack rolls, so he can shoot well in melee combat. When you use the attack action and an attack with a one-handed weapon, you can use a bonus action to attack with a loaded hand crossbow you're holding. A wand of rubber chickens. Actually, I kind of wonder. I don't think we have to make his highest intelligence. Yes, they cast off of it, but artificers can cast rituals and other spells that don't require rolls or saves necessarily. I wonder if we can't make him a high dex character. So maybe go 15, and we'll put the 14 down here. Or even, what if we put the 13 here and we increase his charisma to the 14? This could be interesting. Making more of a gunner that is supported by his magic and rituals. Let's give it a try. What's it going to hurt, right? I love building challenging characters. You know, anyone can make a wizard with a high intelligence. Can you make a functional wizard that has, you know, mediocre intelligence? No, just until the end of the next long rest. Even using that level 1 ability to make a tiny non-magical object magical is great for stocking your flimsy snake oil. Yes, exactly. Yep, you got it, Lith. An artificer can very well be a flim-flam man selling snake oil as they pass through town on a wagon. A wand of rubber chickens. Yeah, sell it. Make sure you're long gone before they blow all the ammo. Half-orc wizard is my jam, says One Crit Wonder. Sharpshooter could work. Attacking at long range doesn't impose disadvantage. Your ranged weapon attacks ignore half cover and 3/4. Before you make an attack with a ranged weapon that you're proficient with, you can choose to take a -5 penalty on the attack roll. If the attack hits, you add +10 to the attack's damage. All right, I think going sharpshooter is going to be a good way to go. Warcaster would be very interesting. But I don't know if he ever really intends on being in the mix. He's a leader, and I don't want to say he leads from behind, out of a cowardice, but I think he wants to be more the tactician. He's not in the mix, but he wants to be providing ranged. He wants to provide ranged support. Oh, GM Volt, thank you very much for re-upping. Hey, that means a lot to me, man. Sharpshooter's a good feat for weapon users at range. I'm almost thinking even Spell Sniper, right? He can just sit in the wagon and he can shoot, and he could shoot with his pew-pews, or he could shoot with his pew-pews. But then again, we're not making him the most intelligent, so maybe going for the physical aspect with a higher dex is going to be better than going Spell Sniper. Let's see. What else could we do here? Observant could be very good. Passive perception and intelligence. So that would help him, kind of scan around a lot more. Possibly. Martial Adept. No, he's not really too melee. So when the going gets tough on the deal, he can use the turret and his wand to get out of there. Artillerist, Artificer, Snake Oil, Magic Salesman that rides through town on his covered wagon, which hides his turret, a Force Ballista, selling cheap magic doodads, and a medieval tank. Lith, you gotta make this. Make this character, Lith, and share it with us. I would love to see your concept of that. Obviously, like, high int and high charisma kind of a thing. Yeah, Observant's never a bad choice. I do agree. If there's something more thematic, I'm fine. Now, Observant isn't as universally awesome as Lucky. So I'm very hesitant to ever give a character the Lucky feat when we're making characters in this exercise. Because anyone could use it, right? Lucky just happens. I'd say if you could talk to your DM and tweak Mounted Combatant to be, to allow for ranged, so that he could shoot from the back of a moving wagon, that could be very interesting. Keen Mind could be interesting. You always know which way is north, so you know the direction, you know the time, and you also can accurately recall anything you've seen or heard within the past month. That kind of photographic or eidetic memory can be really, really good. And especially for someone who is this tinkerer, feels very much at home, more around the things that he makes. That could also play into this, I suffer awful visions of a coming disaster, right? It's not letting him forget. Now, if we were an alchemist, I think going Elemental Adept would be really good because you specialize in acid and Well, so poison's not one of them. So what you could do is take Elemental Adept and go for acid, and you could really pew pew people with acid as an alchemist and do that very, very well. That's something that if you make an alchemist, you should consider. Actually, even if you want to try that, Lith, if you're going to make an alchemist flim flam man, try giving Elemental Adept and see what happens. You could also do Critical Role thing and add a Speed Reader perk to Keen Mind as well. If some of those perks don't really fit well or seem too meh. Yeah, I agree, Coffee Cat. You know, when it comes to feats, if your DM allows it, like with anything else, talk about it, negotiate it, make sure that it fits the theme of the campaign. It doesn't make things, you know, too out of control, or it doesn't load up a feat and make one feat way too good. Guild Artisan background, probably. Yeah, so a guild merchant, yeah, I would agree. With a guild merchant and, you know, maybe they make something else that's, that could be, you know, because you're going to get alchemist supplies. You're going to get alchemist supplies as an alchemist artificer. And you're also going to get cooking utensils, if I recall correctly. So maybe something like smith's tools. So you also, or glass blowing. Ooh, that could be cool. You can make do that, Lith. Take glass blowers tools. That way you have all sorts of funky looking, like, as part of the pitch. You're like, oh, and this rare stopper. And, you know, it's like twisted glass. Really, it's just, you know, it's water with some, like, pink dye or something in it, right? But it's in this, like, extremely, like, weird-looking glass vial and all that. I always think tough and durable are not very good feats by themselves. They don't do much to add to the character like other feats do. They do, it's just not as actively observable. Or if you're playing in a more roleplay heavy campaign, they're not going to seem to put in as much work. I wonder if athlete could be interesting. We're trained in athletics. When you're prone, standing up uses only 5 feet of your movement. Climbing doesn't have your speed, and you can make a running long jump or a running high jump after moving only 5 feet on foot. That makes him very, that can make him very mobile. Or, I mean, there is mobile, actually. That could increase his speed. As a dwarf, that could be important, running around. Linguist could be interesting as a leader as well. You get those 3 languages, and you have a special cipher. If you're a squad leader, that could be your secret code. You know, so you could give like hand signals, or you could talk in a special language. That could be an interesting one too, actually. He's an Outlander. Specifically, he's a guide. Ooh. Ooh. I forgot about that for a second. His background is an Outlander guide. I kind of then like... Observant is still solid. Perhaps more thematic would be Keen Mind. Because he always knows which way is north. He knows what time it is. And he just has this ability, right, to track time, direction, and detail. I kind of like Keen Mind. For this. That will bump his intelligence to 14. And now we get to choose one more feat for him. Yeah, Glassblower is underrated. And he can make a big presentation, right? On his wagon, he has kind of like a you know, he has a little brick stove with some metal so it doesn't burn into the wooden planks or whatever. And so he can give a demonstration, or maybe he even uses his alchemy to make like super contained hot fire, or some like coke coal, C-O-K-E, which is like super hot burning coal. Lith, I think that's really I think you're onto something. I wish there were more charisma feats, because depending on a campaign, faking sounds and disguising oneself may not always be the route to take. I agree, and you know, Coffee, you could pick it up off of the one that gives you the charisma defense. You're like, well, how many times do I have to defend against charisma? It happens. I think that cycles back around to talk to your DM. Could you argue that by being a linguist, instead of intelligence by 1, you could say charisma +1 instead? Because now you can present yourself to more people. And if you want to strengthen it, and even say, so Coffee, you say to me, I'm your DM, look, I think linguist is really up my character's alley. I'm proficient with performance. Would you be willing to change intelligence to charisma? Because I'm really going to be using my linguistic capabilities through my performance. It's going to make me more eloquent. If you're pitching that to me as the DM, I'm going to be way more likely to say, you know what? That makes sense. You've met me halfway. You've already specialized your character in how you're going to be using that feat more often than not. And so if you are willing to give a little, then I'm willing to get a little over to you. All right? Had defense against Chris. Oh, right, Azrael. I kind of like that idea. Hey, yeah. You know, pitch it that way. I mean, now you'd have a harder time saying increase your intelligence, your charisma score by 1 with a keen mind, because that's very specifically more about your brain power. Maybe wisdom. I might be willing to consider wisdom as a DM. Some DMs are saying, nope, I'm not allowing feats, or just roll it as it says. Or even something like inspiring leader has a charisma minimum, and you might even be able to say for inspiring leader, I'm willing to meet you halfway, and it says your level plus your charisma modifier. Can I get the charisma bump and just have the temporary hit points be my level instead? So you're getting a permanent benefit to your character up front because you get the charisma bump, but you're losing out on those extra floating temporary hit points. Again, give a little, get a little. As a DM, I enjoy that kind of exchange and open-mindedness to accommodate a player who is not power gaming, but is thinking creatively and thematically about the content that's here. Mordecai is already proficient with performance and charisma saves, so that could work. So with that in mind for Tuesday's Coffee Cat, I can't tell you when. I mean, I just can't. It's not, I'm being coy. In my campaigns, there are times that I allow for some kind of retraining or respecking, or depending on the circumstances, kind of like Cecil's transformation from a Dark Knight into a Paladin, even a restructuring of a class, or some other effects too. As kind of a release valve for people who've played their character for a while, they've grown with the character, but maybe they have a different concept, or they need some more wiggle room than replacing one spell per level. So I can't tell you when that's going to happen, but as a DM, this is something that I include in my campaigns to be able to allow characters who've kind of built up. We'll give them a shimmy shake, and we'll let everything kind of settle back down. And through the story, we can explain large changes in something. That has occurred with your character. How would you go from a Dark Knight to a Paladin? Well, you face this. You face this mirror image of yourself. You overcome your thoughts and your doubt, and there you go. Oh, Katie Sue is raiding with a party of 4. Thank you, Katie. Or is that too soon? Are you still stuck in ad purgatory? Yes, welcome, welcome, raiders. Cheers to you all. You know, skilled wouldn't necessarily be bad either. Make him even more skilled in things, or give him even more tool proficiencies. I was also thinking perhaps medium armor master. He's already proficient with it. It doesn't impose disadvantage on stealth checks, and he can get now 3. He could get the full dex that he'd be currently rocking to his armor class. And so he's not necessarily stealthy. Not that he couldn't be. But that could be very interesting as well. So as the leader, his armor is different. His armor is allowing for more capability. He's presenting himself in a different in a different way. I don't think a lot of people take that. In fact, I think, Coffee, you had a conversation about that with Fluffy Sheep. I didn't think Fluffy Sheep really liked that feat all that much. Oh, you know what we could do? What is it called? Resilient. Let's get proficiency with our dex saving throws. And this will increase our dex by 1, bringing us to a 16. So we're good in dex, con, and intelligence. He's mobile. He's nimble. He's a gunfighter that goes between his turrets. So not only is he shooting and doing it very well, he has his 2 turrets spawn, and he can dodge out of the way of things. And I think that's very thematic for him. Moderately armored, but yes. Okay, gotcha. I think we have it here. Resilient dex. That's going to give us a 0 strength, 3 dex, 2 con, 2 int, 0 wisdom, and 2 charisma. Our strength is 0, but our athletics is 5. Our dexterity saving throw is 8. Sleight of hand is 8. Then a 3 and a 3 for acrobatics and stealth. Our constitution's 7. Intelligence is 7. Arcana is 7. Everything else is 2. Survival's 5. 2, 2, and 2. But then we have a 7 and a 7. That's going to give us a passive perception of 10. Because it's 10 plus your perception modifier. Congratulations! He has a name. What would we like to name our squad commander? Now, not the captain, but the person who went out in the field. This is our Riker. This is our leader when we're on the away team, kind of a thing. A male mountain dwarf, artificer artillerist, who's an outlander who is a guide in the wilderness, who is this officer character. Gunfighter, rather charismatic. Pardon me. Initiative is going to be +3, since it's a dex check. Hit points. At level 1, you get your full 8 from your D8 hit die. The other 13 levels of our 14 is half plus 1, so half of 8 is 4, plus 1 is 5. Then for all 14 levels, you get bonus hit points equal to your Constitution modifier. And so this is going to be 28 bonus hit points plus 45 So this is going to be 36 plus 45. So that is going to be 41. This is going to be 81 hit points. Now, our spell attacks aren't going to be the best, but you know what? Maybe he doesn't take a lot of attack spells. And that's fine. He's going to get some, but, you know, he's throwing it out there because he can. It creates a distraction. Really, his danger is his gunnery, right? Is his aim. We add 8 to that because that's what you do. 7 plus 8 is 15. Spell slots were 4, 3, 3, and 1. And also, if we choose a lot of spells for him that are rituals and other things that just have static effects, his lower intelligence is not going to waste. And my cat is resting on some very crinkly plastic for these miniatures here. Which, by the way, for all of you, I do have 8. I do have this brick of 8 more Dungeon of the Mad Mage boxes. This was a +7. That's a 15 to save. And infused items was 4. And yeah, we theoretically used 0 of them. So, so we're only going to be able to prepare 9 spells. But those 9 that we prepare, you know, we're going to curate that list a lot more. We're going to be a lot more picky. And then, of course, we get these other spells that are just going to exist. I wonder why that's kind of geeking out. All right. Well, there we go. Now, aside from choosing the infusions, and we're gonna focus on stuff like that and spells in the next segment, I think we have a really solid character here. You want to call him Dundee Fasthand? Boot Brandek, says GM Vault. Coffee says it was a question of whether medium armor would be useful to Mordecai at all. Since he's a +3 dex, it's more useful to him for increasing AC to take mage armor through magic initiate or as a magical secret. Oh, gotcha. All right. But maybe for a fighter or someone who doesn't have that access to that magic, it could be useful. That makes sense. But Mordecai is a magical boy, so take that into consideration. All right, so how about we combine what GM Vault and Azrael are saying here, and we can call him something like, so Dunboot. Dun is another name for brown. So he's a brown. So he's known as like the brown boot. Right? You know, the old Dusty Trail, that kind of thing. We have a nice gunslinger here. Dunboot Fasthand, a.k.a. the Brand. And so the brand, right? A brand is when you heat something up and you leave a mark. That's another option too, I suppose, GM Vault. In this case, the brand is the hot lead. When you're struck by it, it's hot, it's metal, and it leaves a mark on you. And so here we have Dunboot the Brand Fasthand. And he leaves his brand on you. If heat metal is a spell he can take, he should. It's not a brand, it's a hole in your chest. So, but that's his mark. It's a very deep brand. Heat metal, let's double check the Artificer list real quick. Heat metal is, in fact, a 2nd level spell that an Artificer can take. Yeah, right, GM Vault. And if we take a quick look here, you know, if we want to give him a revolver, that's 2d8 piercing. You get 6 shots. So every one of his brands is 2d8 here. But of course, with sharpshooter, we ignore the reload quality, so we get our 6 shots, but then we can just sort of automatically fill it back up. All right, you know what? I think we have a character. Let's get up and take about a 10-minute break. And when we come back, let's talk about spells. Let's talk about infusions. Let's go over the party. And, you know, as specialists, they're all going to do something in particular. And so let's give this team flavor. Yes, every day they could wake up and all of them could choose the same spells, because artificers can choose their magic like that after a long rest. But if we were to capture on an average day, if the squad is prepared for anything to happen, with this military, with this mission in mind, what would an average day for this squad look like when they get up and prepare their spells? Sharpshooter does not allow for ignoring loading. That was, I'm sorry, that was crossbow expert. And we said, well, maybe we could just make crossbow expert into like a gun haver expert. Yeah, the crossbow expert when it comes to ignoring the loading quality. Got it. Flavor, I vote ranch. Maybe some BBQ. Azrael saying habanero. All right, 10-minute break. We'll come back and we'll dig deeper into this.